So yeah, we'll wait for a few seconds that people enter. So we are live in the Zoom. We are live on YouTube at the same moment. And we have the pleasure to welcome now for VIP keynote during the European AI Week, Luc Julia, PhD. Luc, you will present your new book. So it's really an honor to have you. So you are known worldwide because you directed Siri at Apple, but you have done so many things that it's interesting also maybe to address that. So you will present your new book and we will then have a discussion and maybe take also question from the audience. So please don't hesitate to put your question in the chat, either in the Zoom or in the YouTube chat. Someone is reading them and sending it directly to us. So a short introduction. You are Chief Scientific Officer for Renault at the moment, and you were a CTO and Senior Vice President of Innovation for Samsung Electronics recently. You are known, as I said, because you directed, co-designed the Siri at Apple and was Chief Technology at Hewlett-Packard. You also co-founded a number of startups in the Silicon Valley. While conducting research at SRI International, you were involved in the creation of Nuance Communication, now the world leader in speech recognition. You received the Légion d'honneur, which is the highest order or the highest honor in France, and you are a member of the National Academy of Technologies. Thank you for being here, Luc, and we are listening to your new book that was published last week. So, allons-nous droit dans le mur? On va droit dans le mur avec point d'interrogation. On va droit dans le mur. So, how would you translate it in English? So, do we go straight into the wall? Is it a correct translation?
That would be the right translation. Unfortunately, right now the book is not in English yet, so it's only in French. But yeah, indeed. So the name of the book is, On va droit dans le mur. Are we going straight into the wall? But the important thing there is the question mark. I mean, the reality is that this book is not a pessimistic book. I mean, it's actually pretty optimistic, even though at the beginning, I need to just tell the truth, and the truth is very bleak, right? I mean, we are not going, towards the right direction. Basically, our world is sick. I mean, this is the reality, and one of the things that I'm trying to do in the book is to find, if there is a comparison that we could make. And the best that I found is the Easter Island back in the 17th century, right? So what happened there, in the Easter Island, basically the civilization stopped, right? I mean, it died, it disappeared. And we can wonder why. And according to some scientists, it's because we did run down all the natural resources. They did run down all the natural resources. And what was natural resources at the time on the island? I mean, it was basically, forests. And the forest was, the ecosystem, not only, to get the wood in order to have the heat. It was also, the ecosystem for the animals that you could eat. It was also the resources in order to build the ships or to build the boats or the whatever, means they could have had to flee. But, since they used all the wood, basically, they killed all the forest on the island. I mean, there was no more way to get away. And there is no more way to live in the island, and they died. And this civilization was, I mean, according to what we see, with the, it's that way. So they looked pretty advanced for the time, right? So it was a very advanced civilization. It was very interesting, but still they died. So we need to be careful that it's not something that is going to happen to us. And frankly, I mean, the way we are treating our planet today, it looks very much like, something like a bigger Easter Island.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about what is not going well on our planet today and the way we are treating our resources, and of course we could talk about our dependency on oil, on fossil energy, right? So I mean, we are definitely dependent to that. I mean, we are not doing very well with cars, transportation, and so on. I mean, there are a number of numbers that are being thrown away. Thrown out, towards the public in order to see and to say that, we are wasting resources and stuff. But I mean, if we all know about oil and things like that, I mean, I want to focus a little bit on the digital part of it, right? Because I mean, if we talk about AI, we talk about digital, right? And what I want to look at specifically first, and this is a part in the book as well, even though we are talking about a lot of those different things. I mean, I want to focus on the data centers, right? So data centers, I mean, whatever number we are talking about, I mean, it can be 4, 5, 6% of the world energy that is being used by the data center. The reality is that we are using a lot of power, a lot of energy just for those data centers, right? And it doesn't make sense. It's certainly too much. Why is it too much? Because it's too easy. It's too easy to use the data center. We don't realize, because they are pretty much, far from our site. So we don't realize that, it's a lot of energy that is there. Some of those data centers, they are using 60% of the energy just to cool themselves. Because the machines, they are so close to each other that they heat themselves. They heat each other themselves. Yeah? So, and it's ridiculous that we are using 60% of energy not for storage, not for calculation, but for cooling. Right? It's not in all of them, but I mean in some of them. So there is something wrong. So those data centers, why do we have data centers? Because we have a lot of data, right? And this is one of the issues also in AI today, maybe, is that we have too much data. Maybe we don't realize that, we don't need all this data. For instance, one of my favorite one is that at the very beginning of AI, I mean, the modern AI, let's say, 10, 20 years ago, I mean, we had a lot of cats on the internet, right? So all those cats, they were there. And so we decided to create a recognizer of cats. We were all excited about being able to recognize cats. And so we created those recognizer of cats. And with 100,000 images of cats, we were able to create a recognizer of cats that was 98% accurate. Is it interesting? I don't know if it's interesting, but it's showing that we can create some nice systems, that are recognizing cats. But 100,000 cats, it's a lot of cats. I mean, when you compare to us humans, how many cats do we need to recognize cats forever? I mean, psychologists are going to tell us that it's about 2 cats, right? So there is something wrong in the way we are doing AI, maybe there. Maybe we are using too much data. And again, because it seems free, it's out of sight, we don't realize that we are storing, that we are calculating too much of the data, too much of the algorithms there. So we need to be very careful. Another one that pisses me off right now is the Bitcoin. Right? I mean, all the crypto monies and all those things. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, Bitcoin by itself, I mean, is using a lot of energy. One Bitcoin transaction is about 1 million. It's equivalent in energy in 1 million Visa transactions. I mean, that's crazy. Why? It's not even, a fraction of the Visa value, right? And it's taking all this energy. I mean, when you do one transaction of Bitcoin, it's 1 million transactions of Visa. But if you do 2 transactions of Bitcoin, in addition to the energy that you are using, you are also basically throwing away an iPad. Because those guys that are mining, the Bitcoins, they don't care about the value of the hardware. When it's not good anymore to mine the Bitcoins, they just throw that away. And so, I mean, the waste that is being generated by just Bitcoin is something also that we don't realize. So we need to educate ourselves. We need to understand what it means, and we need to calm down a little bit, because we are not going to the right direction, right? So we need to think about that. So the reality is that we are sick with our data, basically. I mean, we are totally sick with that. So not only with the quantity of the data, but also with the quality of the data, right? I mean, the quality is not good. I mean, we are getting, we are not even going to touch fake news and personal data. I mean, I'm talking about that, in the book as well. So let's not talk about that, but talk about the data itself. By definition, the data that we are playing with, us data scientists, people that are doing some AI, I mean, this is already biased data. This is data from yesterday. So the data from yesterday, it cannot be, good for the systems of tomorrow or today. So it means that we need to enter our own bias, when we are playing with the data. We need to balance it. We need to, be sure that we are going to massage it the way that is going to be okay for it to be used, by the systems. And so by doing that, we need to be very careful, because this data being basically touched by us, it means that we need some ethics to decide if what we are doing is good with the data. But if the ethics is not there, we need regulation. We need people to understand what we are doing in order to be transparent. So this is something that we need to think about, when we do also all this data thing. So, but I mean, enough of black, things, and let's talk about what we can do, right? Because of course we can do something. We can do something collectively. First of all, the very first thing that we can do collectively, it's educate ourselves. Understanding what are those issues, understanding that maybe we don't need that much data, understanding that, we don't need to do what those things, and some of the resources that are being used, they could be used for something else. The reality is that when we have issues, this is the best way, the best moment to invent something, right? This is what happened, back in the 70s when, there was the first oil crisis. We were very inventive. We succeeded to do something. Right now, because of what is happening in the world, we might, because of not only, the climate issue, but also, the war issue, we might be, very inventive as well. So this is the right moment to realize it, to educate ourselves and to change something. So we can do it collectively, by having the companies taking care of that and moving into something more green and so on. So all that is being done, but we need more than the green washing in words. We need to do it for sure. But we need to do it ourselves as citizens at our little level. We can do something. We have the power to do something, even if it seems small. And one thing that we can do is let's all drink beer. Okay. So, okay, let's drink beer, but don't drink the beer in a bottle. That's bad. Just drink it, draft. It's much better. So simple gesture, of the day, we can do that. Same thing, for pasta. I mean, let's cook pasta. I mean, I'm happy to cook pasta, but when you're cooking pasta, think about putting the lid, on the boiler. Because 90% of the energy that is going to be used is going to be, lost if you don't cover the pan, right? So we need to think of those little gestures. This is easy. This is something that we can think about. But then, I mean, I don't want us to think that science and the digital in general is basically lost and is only on the wrong side, of the wall. Actually, science can help a lot. And there are a lot of things that we're going to invent and to do in the next few years that is going to help to save the planet as well. Okay, this is not only the issue, this is also the solution, right? So one of the things that I like a lot, for instance, is the DNA storage, right? I mean, this is, biomimetics, basically. I mean, we are looking at nature and we are trying to do what the nature is doing the best, because nature is very frugal. It's doing some incredible things. So let's look at DNA. DNA is an incredible way to store information. We can store a lot of information today in something, like a battery like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it's DNA, I can actually store the full, French library. I mean, this is incredible. Of course, there are issues to write, there are issues to read. It's going to be cold storage, at the time. But this is part of the solution. We can think of that, and have some new digital tools that are going to help. So we shouldn't throw away the fact that technology is going to help as well. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, I mean, the full message, the message of this of the book is that we are in charge. I mean, the technology, the things that we are doing, they are not being done by themselves. I mean, we are doing them. We are doing the mistakes, but we also are doing the solutions, right? So it means that when we are talking about the AI or any other things that we are building, they are just tools, okay? So I like to compare always, all the tools that we are building, I like to compare them to hammer. Because at the end of the day, this is what it is. I mean, we are building a bunch of hammers, very specialized tools that are going to help us in a very specialized task. So, but the hammer, you can use it the right way, by driving the nail in the wall. So very good. But you can also use it the wrong way. What does that mean? I can use it to, hit you on the head. That's mm-hmm. not good. But how do we know that it's not good? We know that it's not good because the society decides, because the society is educated enough to decide that, using the hammer on your head is not good. So we decide that collectively. Because at the end of the day, what matters is that this hammer, I do have, the handle in my hand. I decided to use it, and we collectively decided how to use it, right? So this is something that we need to realize is that we have the solutions in our hands. This is not going to come, from I don't know where. We have the solution. We need to be careful. We need to be educated. And once we are educated, we are going to be able, to take things in our hands and to react and to make the world, better. And at the end of the day, we are going to avoid the war. I'm pretty mm-hmm. sure. That's, pretty much what the book is talking about.
Thank you, Luc. It's fascinating, but the first question that comes to mind is how can we, as an engineer or as a user of AI solution, be more conscious of the energy it takes or the energy that we add to produce the data or the model? How can we, what should we do to be more conscious of that? Because, okay, it's quite abstract. So we can evaluate the heat and the energy lost by the sending of an email. That is quite easy, but gathering all the data, constructing a model, then use it. Okay, so do you have some insight in your book or the way we should do?
So it's actually not that difficult. I mean, at the end
mm-hmm.
of the day,
okay.
you know pretty much which machine you are going to use, the characteristics of the machine that you are going to use in order to build your model. For instance, let's take building a model. Mm-hmm. So when you are going to build a model, you are going to know that it is the characteristic, the GPU, CPU, TPUs, whatever the machine is going to be. Pretty much what is going to be the energy signature of this machine. You know how much time you are going to use it, to create the model. So I mean, it's not very complicated to find out that if you are using a machine that has 2,000 CPUs and that you are going to use it, for an hour, and that you are going to each of the CPU is going to be 200 watts or something. You are going to spend 440 kilowatts, right? So that's pretty easy. I mean, you need to be educated a little bit. You need to do some approximation sometimes, but you can get a view of what this thing is going to be, and that is going to be good enough for you to understand that it's not free. I mean, this is mm-hmm. the bottom line. I mean, already if you do realize that it's not free, it's good. I mean, when I was saying earlier, that AI is too easy. I mean, today I have the tendency, to say, okay, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but I'm going to take this set of data and this set of data, and I'm going to throw those sets of data, towards some different algorithms. And I'm going to run that, up there in the cloud, right? And so I just send the job, and that's it. I'm waiting, and a few minutes or a few hours later, the job comes back, and I'm okay. This one I threw it away because it was a stupid idea, and this one, it's pretty good, but maybe I need to throw something else, I did, and I'm going to do it again. So here, this is when we need to realize that every time we are doing a new construction and new modelization, we are actually using a lot of energy. And we should think before instead of thinking after, right? So this is where our brain should be taking into account all those things. So it's education. It's just understanding that we are wasting things. When it's too easy, it means that somewhere we are wasting things. I mean, it's too easy to go to the store, buy everything, and then, throw half of it because we realize that we don't really need it. This is exactly the same thing. One of the practical things that I'm giving, in this book as well, is don't go to the store, to the grocery store when you are hungry, because you are going to buy too much. You don't go there. Eat and then go to the grocery store. Then you are going to, eat to buy less. We are wasting 50% of the food in the Western world. This is ridiculous. So this is exactly the same thing for the digital way.
Okay, so my question was referring not to the consumption when we launch an algorithm or a program or a process, but rather if you use something else, you can compare it with the electrical car, for example. So it does not, the consumption is not, the production of CO2 is not high, but in fact, to constrict that, it has, So the balance is not there. So, so what would be the philosophy of what are the data we have to gather? Because we do not know what it will be used for, maybe. So how can we behave in a smart way, also in the production of the solution, not only the consumption, using the model. Am I more clear?
So I think I understand a little bit. So okay, let's talk about the data that is necessary. First of all, I mean, we need to be very
the cats,
frugal.
for example, you told us 100 cats, 100,000 cats. Okay, that costs much energy, to produce.
That's way too much. Way too much. So do we need as many cats? I mean, the reality is that we realize that, we human only need 2 of those guys, right? To think. So maybe there is an algorithm somewhere that should be, better than what we are using. Basically, we are using brute force, right? So brute force works. I mean, it works, and we are very happy about that. But obviously, this is not the frugal way to do it. So we need to think about new algorithms, maybe, because this is not the way it is today. So today, we need a lot of data. When we are talking big deep learning today, we are talking about big data, right? So this is the reality. But that said, I mean, what you brought up, about the cars, the electric cars, I mean, it's very interesting because it's very difficult to compare. I mean, for sure, I mean, when it's running, obviously, an electric car is taking less energy, than a gas car. But I mean, you're right that to produce it takes, a lot more energy. So you have a balance. But I mean, there are curves that we can calculate, according to the age of the car, that is showing that at one point the curves, are crossing, and that you become energy free at one point. So that's something also that we can calculate. But same thing. I mean, there is nothing perfect. I mean, the reality is that if we want to do something, we need energy at one point. So we're not going to claim and to say that we have free energy, and that we are we have the sun at our disposal, and that is there all the time, and that we are a big energy plant ourselves. So this is not the way it is. So there will be compromises to be made, but those compromises we can actually do them by being educated about them. Okay, so that's the main message of the thing there.
Okay, so I understand. Okay, so I think it's also to have a engineer that thinks about more broadly than the code and the math and things like that. So do you think we should come back to Léonard de Vinci approach, I would say, because we said that Léonard de Vinci was the last one to capable or integrating the different aspect, the various aspect of the societal impact.
That's a very, very, very good question. I mean, and Leonardo da Vinci, or Pascal, or all those guys, that were back there, those great minds. I mean, the reality is that they were multidisciplinarists. So it means that they were able to see the world from several, prisms that were, theirs, because they were geniuses, right? So we are not geniuses. I mean, some of us, maybe some of you guys there, are, but I'm not a genius. So the way we are doing stuff is basically bringing people that are different than us, because I firmly believe, into multidisciplinarity. So it means that I know that I need people that are going to think differently than I do. I'm an engineer. I'm a researcher. I'm going to think that way because, I'm a mathematician and this is the logical way, and I'm right. Okay. But the reality is that I'm not. So I want to bring in my teams, and this is what I'm doing, forever. I'm bringing in the teams a lot of people that are totally different from me. I have in my teams, ergonomes. I have in my teams, psychologists. I have people that have a totally different, education than I have. But the nice thing is that when you put all those guys together in the thing, they are going to come up with innovation. This is exactly what innovation is about. Innovation is about doing something differently from anyone else. If you do the same thing that you are doing forever, this is not innovation. This is just, maybe progress, but this is not innovation. So this is very important what you just said. Leonardo da Vinci, was obviously somebody, with a great mind that had so many interests that he was able, to put in his inventions, a lot of different views. Us, we need to have many people to do that, and many people of different, backgrounds.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we just had a chat with Grégory Renard and Aurélie, as I told you, and Grégory was saying, okay, and Aurélie the same. We have to learn alongside all the life, so it's lifelong learning, and we have to learn by ourselves and continuously. That is really the key and really important.
Another thing that is important.
And he said at the same moment that we have to learn also to go outside our comfort zone.
Exactly.
So
I mean, exactly. Comfort is too easy. This is what I was saying also about the fact that AI is too easy today, because you just throw those data, that brute force is working, and you are going to be able to do something. So, but we need to be smarter in the way we are going to do things. And to be smarter, we need to do something else than what we are doing every day. So this comfort is definitely something, that we need to get rid of in order to be more inventive. This is also what I was saying about the fact that, today we are in a world that is in a difficult situation, the war, the climate change. So, and when we are, against the wall like we are right now, this is the best moment actually to invent something and to be creative, because we don't have the choice. So
what do you propose concretely? What do you propose? What do we do?
So as I said, I mean, we need to do some other ways, than what the normal easy ways of today is, right? So quantum computing is an interesting thing to look at, right? So quantum today is definitely not there yet. There might be some problems with energy. There might be also, some issues there, but this is another way. This is another projection of the mind, basically, right? So this is something to look at. This is another way to look at. This is not mathematics anymore. This is physics, right? So this is a little bit less in my comfort zone, for sure, right? So this is something interesting. When I was talking about the DNA storage, I mean, DNA storage is also something interesting. This is bioinspiration. Bioinspiration, I mean, the biology is going to learn to make us learn a lot. I'm not comfortable in biology. I don't know anything about biology, right? But I mean, people are going to, and maybe by playing together, we can succeed to do something. So, I mean, again, at the big scale, this is what we can do. We need to change the paradigms, and we need to push those paradigms, even though it seems crazy. Another thing that is very important, and that is not very well shared, in Europe, but here in the Silicon Valley, we have more this. This is we are okay to fail. I mean, failure is actually part of learning. In Europe, I was always told, that failure is not good because when you fail, you're dead. Right. So here in the States, I mean, especially in the Silicon Valley, I mean, when you fail, you learn. And people that are going to fund you, they are going to fund you because you failed before. Right. And so it means that the mistakes that you did when you failed, you're not going to do it again. Maybe. I mean, most likely you are continue to do mistakes. But the thing is that doing mistakes is part of the learning process. And we're going to try things that are going to have no sense. But let's just do it, try it, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. So it makes me think about another thing. So I completely, fully agree with that, Luc. So we have to learn through failures, and yeah, we have to do experiment attempt, and that's the way we learn. And that's not what the school teaches at all. But when we compare, the conception of the computer and the conception of the brain, or you say, okay, we have to see two cats and then we know the things. Can we compare it with the evolutionary process through a million of years, make it sense or not? So sorry to loop on that, but
maybe we can. The thing is that, do we understand this process? I mean, the issue is that today, if you ask the people who are studying the brain, they are going to tell you that we know between 20 and 40% of the brain. We understand 20 or 40% of the brain. So it means that we still don't understand a lot of things. So if we want to copy basically a brain, into a physical or mathematical object, and it's going to be difficult because we don't know what we are copying. So that's the main issue for that. But that said, I mean, we can learn most likely by the evolution of our brain. And the brain of the Cro-Magnon guy, was most likely not able to do a lot of the things that we are doing today. So the evolution of the brain could be maybe concentrated, into an evolution of a machine. But
so there are many questions about cryptocurrency, but I think it was straightforward that you are not supporting any initiative around blockchain and crypto money. Is it right, or can you nuance a bit?
I mean, I'm going to nuance. So I mean, I'm definitely not supporting crypto money because I think that it's ridiculous. It's just speculation at this time, and I mean, this is such small part of the economy of the world that is taking such big part of the energy of the world. That's totally ridiculous. So crypto money for me, I mean, we don't need it basically. So maybe there will be some cryptos that are going to be more into the regulation space, and I totally understand and support everything that is open, open source, open blah blah blah. So maybe open money, is what crypto is supposed to be. But I mean, with the current way the crypto money are working, I mean, I don't support that at all. For the blockchain, it's totally different. Even though crypto money, is based on blockchain, I mean, blockchain is also kind of ridiculous. Most of them, the way they are using the energy and something like that. When we are talking about specifically the open, public blockchain, so very complicated, to understand, what is the actual energy that is being used. Depends, where it is being mined, blah blah. So I mean, okay, so we can talk about that. There will be some very interesting things to do in blockchain with the blockchain, and there are a lot of places already with private blockchains. So by definition, private blockchains, it's private, so it means that it's not as open and as auditable. Let's say that what the blockchain should be. But I mean, there are some very interesting things to do in terms of tracing, objects and stuff like that. So
federated learning, maybe.
Federated learning is yet to do something else. So federated learning is going to happen, on the edge, and then we can do something on the edge, and then bring back only some pieces on the on the centralized part. So this is different. But I mean, blockchain I'm not going to throw the blockchain, with the baby bath, as we said, in French. But I mean, there are some good things. I just want us to realize how much energy is being used for some of those things. And if we can do, a more consensus blockchain, I'd be happy, to support it.
Okay, because we launched today an initiative to align and answer some question in Belgium, because there are many initiatives around blockchain, but nothing has been decided yet. And okay, we want to have a more clear view, a strategic plan about that, integrate the technologies and not making silos. So we had during the day something about that. But Luc, as you have much experience and you've lived in the US, so where are you now?
Palo Alto, California.
Yeah, in Palo Alto. So yeah, that's what I understood. But we met a few weeks ago in Brussels. So can you compare? So in 2016, Obama's administration produced the first report on artificial intelligence. They say, okay, we must invest that as much as we did to go to the moon. Then Europe reacted a bit later, and Asia was already on because of Lee Sedol and AlphaGo and China also. So have you noticed something? Do we stop this global race?
Okay, so the bottom line is that it's not only about money. It's about brains. Yeah. So, okay, let's be, very proud of ourselves, us or Europeans. I mean, we are very good. Okay, so we need to stop bashing ourselves, and saying that we suck and that we are not good and that the Chinese are much better or the US is much better. I mean, us, with our educational systems, right? We are incredible. Yes, of course, we are doing some mistakes, and especially in France, we are leaving people on the side and we could do better and stuff like that. Yes, that's true. But once you succeed, to go through the system, I mean, we are creating people that are incredible. I mean, our engineers, and here I'm talking about France, but I mean, it's true all over Europe. I mean, our engineers are just incredible. And I have the proof of that here in the Valley. I mean, there are 55,000 French people in the Silicon Valley. I mean, when you look at all those big companies, the big names, Facebook, Google, whatever, at the head of each of the AI departments, there is, a European guy somehow. I mean, 71% of the people in the Valley are, not American. I mean, it means something, right? So 71%, it's a lot of people. So, but the bottom line is that we have incredible talent. I'm not talking about singing here. I'm talking about, engineering. And so, of course, we had some issues in Europe in the past, in order to have a market, first of all. I mean, the reality today, and I speak from what I understand, and I might be wrong, but there is no European market. This is the reality. What we thought about, in the 50s, it's not real. So very complicated. We still have, 35 languages or whatever, I mean, complicated. When you have 330 million people in the US that are, talking the same language and that are, pretty much without any border, I mean, this is different from having, 400 million people in Europe that are going to speak 35 languages, and that still have some barriers, and some frontiers. So that's something that we need to realize. Of course, China is yet another thing, because there it's 1.3 billion people, and the 1.3 billion people that have, that are pretty much obliged to do whatever, they are said. So this is yet another system there. But what I'm saying here is that we have the brain. I mean, in terms of AI, we invent stuff that is just incredible. Most of the AI inventions, they are coming somehow from Europe. And then, they are going to China, they are going to...
Okay, that's a positive message. And positive message to Europe. But the reality is, okay,
the rate
on
is
the
money.
one side, you have, Google,
So,
Facebook, and on the other side, the Batex. And
so
Amazon is investing as much as Europe during the whole FP7 framework program, Horizon 2020. It was just crazy. Now,
so let's talk about money a little bit.
Up,
I mean,
but
let's talk about money then. I mean, so yes, that's true that we don't have the same amount of money that those guys. I mean, for years we just lived a little bit too comfortably also in Europe. Because we were the first in the world. I mean, when you are first, I mean, you don't need to do anything. You are just first. So we believed that we were the best because we were first. And then I mean, the US and China, and I mean, they caught up, in terms of money, amount of money that they can invest, and they created something. Especially here in the Silicon Valley, we have what we call capital risk. I mean, capital risk is very different from venture capitalism. Right. So capital risk, you actually take risk. For years and years in France, I never saw any capital risk. I know some VCs that looked a lot like, bankers, but there was no risk there, So it changed a little bit back, about 10 years ago, right? 10 years ago, I'm talking about France again, because I don't know Europe that much, but in France, I mean, 10 years ago, Fleur Pellerin, the Minister of Digital Affairs, launched what we call the French Tech, right? And she launched that not only, by saying we need to create startups, blah, 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 which Macron is talking about, today with the startup nation, but she also pushed the BPI, right? The bank, the French bank for investment. She launched that in order for this bank to give substantial amount of money to those startups. So we saw a lot of startups, coming out. So now, in France, we have a bunch of startups. So we are a startup nation, right? So this is interesting. Now we need the next step. What is the next step? The next step is not only 1-2 million that the BPI is going to give to those startups, but it's going to be a huge amount of money that you need to invest. We are talking here, about 50, 100, 200 millions, at a time. And this is where you are going to create those unicorns, right? And those guys, I mean, even though we are claiming in France today that we have 25 of them and we are, very happy and so on, great, we have 25 of them, but we need 100 of them, right? And we need a super unicorn to go, to play against the Google or the Facebook. So this capital risk that is needed, to really invest those kind of amounts, we still don't have this set of mind.
Approach.
This approach in Europe, I think. So we are going to need that at one point. I mean, we see some investors now coming from the States or from China or from Russia, in Europe.
That's crazy.
But we need to be careful.
Yeah, I was presenting the AI plan from France in the European assembly with all the region, and there were some Chinese investors present and saying, okay, if you want, we have millions here.
So this is where we need to take our own, faith into our hands and to create some kind of capital risk. It's not a lack of money. I mean, when you see that, we are putting together some funds during the pandemic and something, I mean, it's possible. Of course, we are going to be in debts, for some time or something, but it's possible to do it. It's a risk by definition. This is what capital risk is.
So you do think that things have not evolved fast enough since 5 years? It's not depending on AI. It's in general, because in 1984, I remember Christian Ockrent interviewing Steve Jobs, and he was telling exactly that we take no risk in Europe, and we do it.
I'm not saying we take no risk. I'm not in a good position to criticize, or to say anything like that. But I'm just saying that what I see here, I see really those capital risks. I do not know, capital riskers in Europe. I just don't know. And I'm afraid that if we don't see those big guys, emerging faster, it might be because the fact that we don't have enough of them, if any.
So maybe some question from the audience. So Laurence, are you still there? I think Laurence de Villers was there. Philippe Compère, you have maybe a questions. You can have the floor if you want. I think Alexander, you can give the floor to who raised its hand. No?
Yes.
Okay. So, hello? Hello, hello? No. Okay, no problem. Do you hear me, Luc, still?
Yes.
Okay. So there is a question from Philippe about the dark web, the use of Bitcoin in Russia. He said, in a way, it is not a regulation or regulation is a risk to slow down innovation. Yeah, this is the discussion. What do you think about the regulation around Bitcoin, but also about AI maybe? We often say
I'm actually, it might be weird, but I'm actually pro-regulation. So I don't believe that regulation is going to stop innovation, because I believe that innovation is way ahead of regulation. So what happens, is that we are doing stuff, the innovation is there, and then, the regulation comes 10 years later. Look at GDPR, right? So GDPR came, in 2018, when the issues really, were back in the early 2000 years, with the beginning of Facebook. So it came more than 10 years after the actual issue of exposure, privacy exposure and stuff like that. So I'm pro-regulation because it was very well needed. I mean, GDPR was needed, but the reality also, and this is why we are going to get, GDPR 2 most likely. GDPR, of course, those big guys, Facebook of the world, they found a way to go around it, of course. And the way to go around it is actually to annoy people by having them, clicking everywhere on the screen, all the time on those boxes. But the reality is that regulation is needed. The great thing about regulation, why do I love regulation? It's because it's the best tool for education. I mean, when people are wondering now, why they have to click those boxes, they are saying, okay, so maybe, I was naked on the internet, and maybe, it's not good, right? So this is why I love regulation. So now, for the dark web and all that, I mean, of course, and it's going to be very difficult to regulate the dark web, because it's the dark web. I mean, this is exactly why, there is no regulation, that this is the Far West, right? So, but there will be a need at one point to people to understand that this is the Far West, and maybe, this is not a place you should go to set your feet, because there are issues potentially. So this is more about like that, than about saying we are going to regulate the dark web. I mean, we are going to regulate the dark web. Of course, if we kill one, another one will come up, right? So this is not the way to do it. We just need to educate people to understand that maybe they shouldn't trust that, or they shouldn't do that, or whatever. But this is what, this is the hammer story that I was talking about. We just explained that it's not good, to put the hammer on your head. That's it.
Yeah. But I think Philippe was also referring to the fact that we say, that, okay, when you have an invention, the US do the commercialization, the Chinese copy it, and we do the regulation. So
I mean, now, after that, this is the society. This is a choice of society. Do I want to live in China today? Well, frankly, no. I don't really want to. Do I want to live in Russia today? Even less, right? So that's a choice. So now you are going to tell me, maybe those Chinese people, they do not have choice. But this is, a dictatorship and a democracy, the difference between the two are, right? So this is something that people, if they are getting educated, maybe, they will succeed to move from a dictatorship to a democracy. But I'm not going to go there.
Okay. So Gregory was telling us that every 3 months there is new innovation with the technology that is feeling, and that goes so fast. So what can you say about the speed? Because the transition, the revolution we are living now, it has a speed that is not comparable to the previous one. I think
that's
that
true.
is one of the difference. The other difference is related, for example, to the jobs, is that before it was okay, attacking the lowest level of education, and now it's both the low level and high level. So these are two characteristics of the transformation we live now.
That's very complicated, and that's true. I mean, I would argue actually that it's not an innovation every 3 months. I would argue that it's several a day. The thing is that it goes very, very fast. I mean, it goes much faster than 2 centuries ago. And this is the challenge. This is what you just said. The challenge is going to be education, because I mean, we need to keep up, right? And keeping up means that we need to have our eyes pretty much everywhere. So it's complicated. It's complex. But the reality is that when we are getting a little bit specialized in one domain, we are trying to keep, for instance, in our jobs, we are trying to keep, advance with the job, and to be sure that we are going to be aware of what is happening, around that very thing. But it's complicated, for sure.
Yeah, I had a discussion today also with François Tedei. So I remind him one of his quotes related to the most brilliant minds are teaching the machine for the moment. And we need, the challenge is education. So how can we do to educate better, or what do you mean by this is the challenge? Because it's recurrent saying, I would say.
It's recurrent saying, but what do? We do exactly what you are doing today, right? So we are doing
Thank you. That is a quote.
But that's reality. The reality, this is what you need to bring those specialists, that you had before in the panel. And I mean, you need to have the Aurélie Jean and the Grégory Renard and the Laurence de Villers. I mean, you need all those guys, to talk to the world, and to have more and more, just explaining what it is without lying. I mean, the issue that we have also, we have a world full of fake news, right? So I'm not going into the fake news of what is happening right now in the East, but I mean, even every day, I mean, Elon Musk, is a fake news by himself, right? I mean, so those kind of guys, even though, he's the richest man in the world, and he's very, I mean, adorable for a lot of things. I mean, he's also bringing, a lot of fake news. In France, in Europe, we have some people like that too, that are saying, n'importe quoi, as we said in French, right? I mean, they say bullshit all the time. So we have those people that are there. So we need to basically fight them with just, facts that are, educated and simple, and just, I mean, without fighting. I mean, just saying the truth. And this is the people like the scientists that you had, on the panel today, that you are going to be able to do that. We need to just go to see the people. We need to reach as many people as possible. We need to fight the idiocracy. Because I mean, the reality is that when you have, something that is happening in my country here in the States, and you have a Trump, this is idiocracy, right? You are not educating people on purpose to be able to run a country. Right, so this is the reality, and you are running a country of idiots. So that's easier to do than running a country like France.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So we are coming to an end. I would have a last question. So, do you still think artificial intelligence does not exist? Or?
Of course. I mean, the artificial intelligence that is the generic one. This one doesn't exist. I mean, it will never exist. I mean, what exists, it's a bunch of artificial intelligences that are very intelligent in whatever they are doing, each of them. Artificial intelligence is a toolbox with a lot of tools that are specialized and by definition better than us on every single thing. But we are good at everything. And the difference between our intelligence and the artificial intelligence. So the artificial intelligence that is in Hollywood, that is, the Terminator of the world, this one doesn't exist and will never exist, because we have the hammer and the tools in our hands, and we decide what to do with them, and we are not going to let them win.
Thank you so much, Luc. We welcome now Dragos Tudorache, who is responsible for the Parliament for the report on the AI Act. So I will go, but I would like to thank you so much for this fascinating, exciting discussion we have had. I invite you in Brussels, so please, we are here for the reception of the European AI Week at De Merode. It's a super location, and I hope we can welcome you in a next trip to Brussels, and we will do that with a great pleasure. So thank you so much, and see you soon, hopefully.
Thank you, Nadel. Good one.
Bye bye.
Bye.